Hola, the name's Akseru, and today I'm going to talk about the development process of my first game on Steam, Marimoth. Okay, so to start, I'll have to explain a little bit of what is Marimoth. Marimoth is a shoot 'em up where you control a little moth and your shots bounce off the walls, so you don't shoot straight forward, you shoot to the sides and the shots bounce off the walls and hit the enemies. It's a kind of a precision game, something like that. But there's no better way than just showing you, so I'm going to do that right now. You can see this is the project on Click Fusion 2.5, which is the engine that I'm using. I use this engine for all my games, both on Steam and on itch.io. And I really like working with Click Fusion 2.5, but I'm going to talk about that later on during the video. But now I'm going to just explain you a little bit of what is Marimoth. Okay, so let's hit play here. This is the development mode, by the way, like this is the game that I work on. This is how I work on the game. You can see options here. Okay. Let's show you a little bit about the gameplay. Okay, so as you can see, I control this little moth down here, and I shoot on the diagonals. I have to collect coins. As you can see, I have a score up there on the right. There's the user interface here on the left with my health, coins, and orbs. Orbs are very special items that you can get by killing bosses. They allow you to continue on the save. Like, if you die and you have, I think, 5 orbs, if I'm not mistaken, you can hit continue and just continue playing from where you died. Yeah, but that's it. You just go playing, killing enemies, and once you defeated all the enemies, you just proceed to the next stage. That's it. Fairly simple, very straightforward, which is very ironic since you don't shoot straightforward. Yeah. You see, this soundtrack is so good. I'm going to talk about that later. Okay, but I think that's it. Let's go back to the menu and quit. Okay, so now let me show you a little bit of the development process of Marimoth. Here, as you can see, I'm on the presentation screen, okay. Don't mind my English writing. English is not my main language, so yeah, you probably already know that. So there's a lot of text that is not correct, but I work better doing it my way. So yeah, it's kind of my way of doing things, so don't bother about that. Okay, so this is the presentation of Netherlamp, my development team, which is just me, pretty much. Here is the main menu. As you can see, you have the options menu here and everything. Okay, so the first stage. Marimoth is kind of a different game when it turns to the development process, okay? So, what I do, how I develop my games is pretty much my way. A lot of people tend to just, oh, I'm going to make placeholder sprites and other things for making them better later on. But me, no, I really like making the sprites final. I like making the final sprites on the run. Like, I don't feel like I'm good at making placeholder sprites, so I just make them all the way and put them into the game, and that's it, okay? So my favorite step about game development is giving life to my work. It's something magical, it's amazing, it's just very incredible. Everything here I made by myself, except the soundtrack and sound design, Yeah, but the sprites, the programming, everything was made just by me. So that's why it's kind of a very strange game. That's why it's very simple, and that's why it has a lot of my personality on it. It's not very amazing, it's not that big of a deal. It's my first game. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed making this game. It was such a fun experience. So yeah, let me show you a little bit about the enemies. Here we have the enemies separated from each stage, okay? So each block of enemies that you see here is one stage, right? Here's the first stage, up here is the first 4 enemies. One of these enemies repeat to the next stage. So here's the second stage, here's the third, the fourth, and the fifth. The second enemy here, the beetle enemy, this little fella, it repeats to the next stage, to the second stage. To the third stage, I believe it's the snake enemy, if I'm not mistaken. From this, if I'm not mistaken, is the crab. Then the fourth stage, we have the... oh yeah, the pincher. This enemy is kind of a abstract one. I really don't know what I wanted with this one. I just drew something and that's it. And yeah, the fifth stage doesn't have any repeating enemies since it's the last stage. Like, it just have the pincher from the previous stage, from the fourth stage. Since there's not a sixth stage, there is no enemy from the last stage to go over, like to repeat. So a very recurrent criticism about Marimoth is the resolution, the screen resolution. Oh yeah, so it's square, right? No, you're wrong. It's not square. It's widescreen. These black borders are fake. Literally, the black borders are fake. Look at this. They're fake. The reason why I chose these black borders is because, well, you see, the whole premise of the game is your shots bounce off the walls, right? So if there was the wide screen, like, let's see, these are the walls, right? The collisions. So if I were to put the collisions right here, like here, okay, where they would be if the game was wide, you can see that it becomes really hard to hit the enemies, you know? So yeah, the reason that I chose to make these black borders around the screen is just so you can aim a little bit better. It's about game design, not necessarily about, oh, I have a widescreen monitor, so I really want to play a widescreen game. Why the hell this game is just square? This is why. It's intentional game design, alright? Yeah, so let's continue, okay? So this is level 2, as you can see here, the different frames, all the different stages and levels and everything. Stage and level is kind of confusing, even to me. Like, what is a stage and what is a level exactly? I really don't know, so it may be a little confusing, but during the context of the explanation, you may understand it. I hope so, at least. Okay, so level 3 is nothing different, just the position of the enemies on screen. And if you're wondering why there is a giant moth in the background, this is the Marimoth power-up. This is just that moth that blinks on the background whenever you get a power-up. Because in Marimoth, if you get 15 coins, if I'm not mistaken, I say that if I'm not mistaken, yeah, because I made this game 2 to 3 years ago, so yeah, sorry about that, I don't remember everything. And it's been a while since I played it as well. But yeah, this is the power-up moth that appears on the background whenever you power up yourself with coins. It just flashes for a little bit. The fourth level alright? Oh yeah, Marimoth has 5 levels. Each stage like has 5 different tiny stages in one world. And every 5th stage is a boss. And this is boss number 1, the Mantis. I believe that what really brings Marimoth to life are the bosses. They are so memorable, they're so... like, I cannot call this beautiful, but I tried, okay? I tried my best. I really enjoy the boss battles in this game. The bosses drop a lot of coins, and you see the orbs here. Yeah, and basically Marimoth lore is kind of a mess, but it's about the main moth, the protagonist, saving the moth princesses and the moth queen, which is being kidnapped by something. I'll get to that later. So here's the cage. You can just shoot the cage to open it and free the little moth. And she drops you a heart, and I'm not going to give you spoilers about the next region, because that's coming really soon. So yeah, about the bosses, okay? So you can see that whenever I hit the boss, it doesn't have any indicator. You see, you hit the boss and there's nothing that really tells you that you damaged it. This is I think, the most recurrent criticism that I get about Marimoth is that whenever you hit a boss, it doesn't show you anywhere. I thought about making the boss flash white or something like that, but it didn't end up looking so good, so I decided to keep it this way, because this game was inspired by one of my childhood games called Pet Wings. Pet Wings is like a really beautiful shoot 'em up. It's pretty simple as well. The power-up system is pretty much the same here. I was really inspired by Pet Wings when I made Marimoth. And the bosses on that game work the same way, like there's no health bar, there's nothing that really shows you that you're hitting it. It's just that kinda the bosses are made of stone, like, you know what I mean? Like they're like metal things that whenever you hit them, they just make a ping noise and that's it. Like, you don't know if you're actually damaging it or not, and that makes you feel more uncomfortable about the situations and oh my god, when will this end? When the boss battle will end? Am I doing something wrong? And when the boss dies, it's like, okay, I get it. I'm doing it right. This is just... yeah, this is just the way it is. So I decided to keep that. I know it's very unintuitive and it's kind of bad, but I think, my personal opinion at least, it's good. You see, from my experience, it's a good thing. It gives you more that like specific vibe about the boss battles. Okay, so next stage. Stage 2, the forest. Okay, so the stages have some themes, as you can see. The first stage is called the garden, the second stage is called the forest, the third the seaside, the fourth the treetops, and the last one the chasm. But they start to make sense, like, oh yeah, so there's a moth in a garden, there's a moth in a forest, there's a moth under the sea. That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I just wasn't sure about what to do. I had a few ideas earlier this year to change the seaside to a cave. Like, imagine a cave and the final boss is the boss of that stage, is actually a giant spider. It would be really cool, only if I had this idea back in the day when I was making Marimoth. That would be so amazing. Maybe for Marimoth 2, who knows? Maybe I'll make that game someday. Okay, so onto the forest. Oh, sorry about that. The forest is green. You see, Marimoth has a lot of color differentiation from each stage. Like the garden is brown, the forest is green, the seaside is blue, the treetops is pink, and the chasm is purple. And the whole palette changes. Like even the UI, everything changes, like all the colors change. Oh yeah, and the enemies on the later stages are obviously more tanky, like they take more hits before being defeated, like before dropping the coin and everything. The enemies and everything on the stage and the scenario is pretty much the same color. Like they're all brown. You see, like here's the second stage enemies, but they're brown and orange, but when you play the game they're actually green and yellow. This is because I'm changing the palette through code. Like, let me show you a little bit, okay? So this is the functionality of this stage, of the first stage of the forest. And this is how it works, okay? So it have 2 starter frames and a lot of logic going behind it. Yes, let me see here. Are you seeing all those replace colors? Yeah, this replaces all the colors of the moth to make it green. For the enemies, that happens as well. But the enemies are actually a group of objects. Here on Click Team, we call that qualifiers. So yeah, I put a qualifier inside of all the enemies and then made that qualifier, that group, change colors. You see, that made a lot of things easier, that basically saved me so much time. Oh yeah, sorry that my avatar is in the way. I'm really sorry about that. That really doesn't matter, okay? What really matters is that the color changes are not made by hand. I made them by code, because that saved me so much time. If I had to re-import all the animations, remake all the graphics and sprites, instead of just being one image per frame of the animation, it would be like at least 5 for each frame of each animation. So it would literally multiply the sprites that I have, the image sprites, by 5. That's a lot. That's a lot of files. And yeah, I'll later on show the files, how I put them together and everything. It's kind of a mess. It's just it's like a huge bundle of images and everything else. Like, okay, so the second boss. All right, so the second boss is crazy. Oh yeah, the reason why I made the first boss, I forgot about that. The mantis. Why it was a mantis? It was a mantis because I really like mantis bosses in games. I remember playing Freedom Planet and there's a giant mantis boss and I thought, oh yeah, that's so cool. And having a giant mantis as a boss is really interesting. And you can see later on that it will connect to another boss of the game, which is my favorite boss, and I'm going to show that for last, okay? I'm going to save that for last. But let's talk about the lizard. Yeah, the second boss, the forest boss, the lizard. You can see all the animations here. You can see like the animations of waiting. He's just waiting, literally. Flying, he's just entering the stage and everything else. Charging, he's charging his shot or his main attacks. Charging 2, charging 3, charging 4. Shooting tongue. This is a very interesting thing, because, well, you can see that it puts out its tongue and its eyes go white. It's his laser attack. Oh yeah, but here's the lizard boss. This song, this soundtrack is like very, very cool, very cool. I'm not very good at it, sorry. Oh yeah, so the lizard boss is pretty simple. It just stays up there and shoots at you. But then it comes down and shoots a laser. Alright? The laser attack of the lizard was supposed to be a tongue attack. It was supposed to just stick out of its tongue and hit you, but I changed to a laser because making a tongue would be so complicated. Today, with more experience, I have a few ideas of how I could make it, but yeah, at the time when I was making Marimoth, it was not possible for me, okay? It was like very ambitious, and I decided just, okay, I know how to do lasers, so let's do a laser. Okay, third stage, the seaside. It doesn't make any sense. Don't ask me why I chose to put a moth under the sea, okay? That doesn't make any sense, but I like it, I enjoy it. It's like a neat blue place. If it was a cave, it would make a little bit more sense, and the giant spider at the end would be amazing, but yeah, it's seaside. You're under the ocean, with corals on the background. Don't ask me, okay? I just think it's cool. But it doesn't make any sense, I know that. So, seaside has a lot of that chill vibe, you see? But it's not very chill, to be honest, since the enemies are really tanky here. Like, they take a lot of hits before going down. It has 5 stages, like every other scenario of the game. It has 5 stages. And in the last stage, we have the squid. Yeah, we have. There's a squid as a boss for this stage. Oh yeah, this arrow indicates that it's coming from down below. Oh yeah, you gotta keep in mind that this boss's shots actually bounce off the walls as well, so you have to be very careful about that. But yeah, the squid boss is actually very interesting, because it was that time where I actually don't plan my games, okay? Like, I started doing it very early this year, or last year when I started making Forest of Strays, the remake of Forest of Strays. But that's not the content of this video. I'm going to make a separate video just for Forest of Strays. But for Marimoth, I didn't plan anything. I just knew that, okay, I want a moth and I want its shots to bounce off the walls. I don't want to shoot them up where you shoot straight forward. I want to shoot them up where you shoot from the sides and the shots bounce off the walls. You see, this idea was actually my brother's idea. I was making another game called Arrowland back in the day, which you can't find anything about it on the internet because I never showed anything. But it was a game about a girl with a hand cannon. I really love hand cannons, sorry about that. With a hand cannon that shoots arrows, and you can change the type of arrow and everything. It was a really complex game, but it wasn't going anywhere, you know? And my brother came to me and said, hey, why don't you do something more simple for your first game? Why don't you try something simpler for your first game? And then I thought, okay, so what? What idea is simple? Believe me or not, if you've never made games or anything like that, it might sound very strange, but making simple ideas is harder than making complex ones. You see, because simple ideas, you have to keep everything simple, you have to keep everything compact, you have to keep everything possible. But when you start thinking about that idea and start adding up stuff like scope creep, they call, or development hell, where you start just adding stuff without thinking because you just feel that's cool and stuff, that turns into another step, like that step up to a more complex idea. So having simple ideas is harder than having complex ones, because complex ones is just simple ideas that you keep adding stuff continuously. And this is why a lot of games don't release. This is why a lot of people give up on game development, because it's very hard to not do that. And once you start adding too much stuff on your own idea, on your simple idea, it becomes so complex that you cannot do it yourself. Like, you cannot even do it with a team sometimes. Like, we have a lot of examples here in the market, so yeah, you have to be very careful about that. And then I asked my brother, what simple idea do you have for me? Like, tell me an example of a simple idea. And then he said, okay, I don't know, but what about a shoot 'em up where you don't shoot forward, for an example? It's a very simple idea, it's just a shoot 'em up that you don't shoot straight forward. And instantly in my mind it came a moth. I don't know why, but in my mind came, okay, this is perfect for a moth. The protagonist of this game must be a moth. And then instantly came the name Marimoth. I don't know why, but yeah, it just appeared in my mind, and I'm very glad about it because I really like Marimoth. The title of the game is like the name of the game is very different. I really like it. And then in the same day, I dropped working on Arrowland and started working on Marimoth. And made the main animations of the protagonist and everything. Oh yeah, so let me show you a little bit of that. Here's a sprite, the software that I use for making all the sprites for my games. And here's the moth sprite, the main protagonist of Marimoth sprite. Okay, you can see that it only has 4 different frames of animation, of its flapping its wings. I decided to keep Marimoth sprites very simple and animations very choppy, for 2 reasons. First, for it being simpler to make and less time consuming. Since I'm doing all of this alone, it's very hard to do complex stuff and very fluid animations and smooth stuff. So I decided to keep it very, very tiny, very simple, just so it would be easier for me to tackle on alone. And for the second reason, pet wings. Yeah, again, pet wings. Pet wings has this not choppy animations, but this very little amount of frames you see. It very low amount of frames, like you don't have many frames in the animations in pet wings. So yeah, I was inspired by that as well. I spent, if I'm not mistaken, 4 hours making this little moth. You see, this little moth took me 4 hours. Because there's a little details, like there's a lot of little things that you have to think about when making a video game sprite. Like, it's not just as simple as draw something there and use it. No, you have to think about it. So yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the hardest part of this sprite is actually the wings. The wings were so hard to make. Like, they took me a lot of time. And making them flap, like look like they're flapping, it's very, very hard. Here you can see that it kinda looks like it's flapping. It's good enough for the game that I was trying to make at the time. And yeah, this is the main protagonist. So this is the main moth. So when my brother came with that idea to me, and I dropped all my other projects just to work on Marimoth, the first thing that I did was make the protagonist. Okay, so I just opened up a sprite and started doing it, and started working on it, making the art, the animations, and thinking about the game and how everything would work. And that basically became my main way of doing stuff. Like, whenever I start a new game, whenever I start working on a new game, I always do the protagonist first. I always do the player first. Because then I could just keep adding stuff on top of that. Like, the player is the base of my games. So yeah, I just started making the player. You see, this is the palette that I used on Marimoth. It's actually a very simple color palette. This palette was made by me using a software that my brother developed. The software that my brother developed is called AGSV Palette Generator, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a software that he himself programmed and developed for him to make his own palettes for his own games. but he ended up never using it, so I decided to use it. I just took the software that he made and made a lot of palettes and chose the one that was really fitting for this idea. And I kept using this palette for like years. I made this long before Marimoth. I made this for another game called Solus, which I never released, but I really want to do a remake someday. I don't know when, but one day I will remake that game. It's actually a very good content for another video. Showing you Solus, my first project. My third first project at this point. Because yeah, I like to say that I have 3 first games. Okay, I have 3 first games, which is Solus, which is the first game that I started working on like for real. Force of Strays, which is the first game that I ever finished, which I finished before starting working on Solus back in February 2020. I made for a game jam, but that's content for another video. And Marimoth, which is the first game that I ever released on Steam. So I have 3 first games. I like to say that. It's very funny to have 3 first games. Yeah. So I made this palette for Solus, actually. I used it for the entirety of Solus, and when I started working on Marimoth, I used the same palette. I just reused the same palette. For my next games though, I used another palette. I created a variation of this one with more saturation, like not necessarily saturation, but a little bit different. You see, like the hue shift was not the same. I just put a little bit of blue on every color, you know? It's very complex, but it's very interesting. That software that my brother made just saved my life so hard. Like, making games with such perfect palettes, like all the colors, all the shades have the same value between them, like just saves so much time and it makes everything look so much better together. And that's what I use for all my games. Software that my brother developed, so I can make palettes for my own games. Yeah, that's basically it. And including the colors that change during the stages on Marimoth, it's the same colors here, okay? So this is the brown of the garden, and this is one of the greens of the forest. This is the yellow of the forest as well, and this is the orange of the garden, you see? This is the chasm colors, the seaside colors, the pink from the treetops, which I'll get there very soon, and the red from the treetops as well. Oh yeah, so going back to the game. Here is the 4th stage. Okay, I'm going to play it a little bit, just so you can see it. Again, the soundtrack is amazing. I believe this is one of the hardest stages of the entire game. Because the enemies are very tanky and they shoot lots of projectiles. This is actually a very good opportunity to show you what actually is the hitbox of the moth. Okay, so when making a game, we call hitboxes the collision boxes. Like, whenever something hits you, like whenever a enemy projectile hits the player has to have a hitbox, so the projectile could interact with it. The projectile also has a hitbox, every enemy has a hitbox, so every single action of the player has different hitbox for it. For an example, when you collect a coin, you cannot use the same hitbox of the projectile. For an example, okay, let me show you. You see, this is the moth, right? When you collect coins, the game checks for the game checks for this whole area here. This whole area, the game checks to see if you collected a coin. But when you take a hit, the game only checks for this area here. So this is the only area that you can actually get hit in Marimoth. So all your wings, your head, you cannot get hit on that part. But you can collect coins with your wings, but you cannot get hit on your wings. So it allows you to make some very good maneuvers, like to evade, to dodge the enemy attacks. The background of each stage is different. The first stage is just a few trees and looks like a garden. The second stage, it's a whole mass of vines and stuff. It's kind of reminiscent of a jungle, of a forest. This one is the treetops, so imagine that you just escaped from the forest, entered the seaside. I don't know why, again, sorry about that. I really don't know why I put the seaside there, but it's in the game, and I'm not going to say that I don't like it, because I really like it, but it's kind of odd. But imagine that you skipped the seaside and went to the top of the trees from the forest, you see, and then it's like the sun setting, something like that. And in the background, you can see that arc thing, that like circle thing on top of the trees. That's the entrance to the chasm, which is the last stage of the game. Oh, here. Okay, so this is very interesting. This is the fourth boss, the bird. The bird, I believe, it's one of my favorite battles of the game. It has a few quirks, as every battle has, but I really enjoyed making the bird, and I think it really works very well with this game. Oh yeah, so this infinite movement, like this 8 movement, was very hard to make. That shower of projectiles is actually very easy to make, but kinda hard to dodge. You have to understand that every boss has blind spots. Okay. Oh, the feathers that falls were added later on, okay? Like, when I already finished the boss, I just decided to add a little bit of a challenge when it dives down. But it's very easy to escape. Oh yeah, and when this boss gets defeated, it spawns all these little birds. Okay. It's finally over. Okay, so this boss has a lot of interesting stuff. Like, as I mentioned before, every boss has a blind spot. Like, that shower attack that shoots a lot of tiny stars, like a shower, you see, there's blind spots there. You can just stand on those blind spots and you'll be safe. Every boss in Marimoth has blind spots. I believe that one that has less blind spots is actually the squid, because the squid shots bounce off the walls, and the diagonals of those shots is not perfect. So it can be very challenging and very tricky to know where that shot will land. Besides that, besides squid, every boss has blind spots, and the bird is a gimmick of the fight. You have to understand the blind spots, you have to know its blind spots so you can escape it. And as I said before as well, the feathers were added later. Like, when I finished all the boss battles, I was playing the game and me and my brother decided, okay, so it's kind of bland, you know? Like, all the bosses are cool and all, but it's not like they're very interesting. So I started adding a little bit of different attacks and other stuff to them. The bird was one of the most interesting ones to do that, because I just added those feathers and tough. And they made it really cool, because the dive attack was very easy to escape, just do not stand on the middle, so yeah, it will not hit you. But with those feathers, it makes everything harder, it will make everything more interesting, so you have to take care to not get hit by those feathers. Beautiful. Okay, so now on to the last stage, the chasm. The chasm is strange. All the enemies here are so tanky, like, I was not supposed to come here with just 2 shots, because each power-up in Marimoth, each power-up on Marimoth adds another shot, like adds another 2 shots or 1 shot in the end of the final power-up. Yeah, so it adds more shots, so you can kill enemies faster and kill more enemies at once. Like in the end, you're just shooting a barrage of shots, like a huge shotgun, like your moth becomes a huge shotgun. With lots of bullets on the screen and everything hitting, yeah, that's crazy. So yeah, this place, I'm not supposed to be here with just 2 shots, I'm supposed to be here with like 7 shots, okay? So, from 6 to 7 shots. These are the stages, okay, I'm just jumping over them because they're pretty much the same thing, they're just introducing new enemies and other stuff. One of my favorite enemies of this game is actually the dragon, I call it dragon. It's kind of a better version of the snake enemy. And it creates a... let me see if I can show you that, okay? It's not very hard. Okay, so you see it creates those ceiling of stars, like those star rains. I don't know how to call them. Okay. One of the hardest enemies to design was the pincher, okay? Let me tell you about this little fella here. It appears originally on the 4th stage on the treetops, but it come back here on the chasm, just to make your life a little bit more miserable, okay? Marimoth is very hard, okay? So as if you didn't see it already, it's very hard. I'm very rusty. I remember that I was very good at this game. Well, I'm the developer, I played it the most, actually. But now I'm very rusty since it's been a while since I have played it. But this little fella here, the pincher, this guy, oh my god, why did I create this enemy? It's so frustrating, like, it just comes closer to you and just shoots at you from the side, okay? I know it's not fair, but it was really worse. I had to change so much stuff on this enemy, like, this game was very, very hard just because of this little fella here. It still is. This guy is very annoying, but believe me, it used to be more. It was to be a lot worse. All the enemies of Marimoth has those giant big eyeballs at the center. This is actually a reminiscence of Stone Souls. If I make a video on Stone Souls, you see that every enemy has that giant eyeball. That makes sense with the lore of Stone Souls, but in Marimoth it just is something that I decided to put in. It's very easier to design enemies on top of that, like when you have a base, when you have something that all enemies should have, it becomes really easy, not easy, but it makes it easier to create interesting designs. In the end, they all look like the same, okay, it's very hard to distinguish them from each other. I really like the way that they look together, like those giant eyeballs with different shapes around them and just attacking you. Oh yeah, the final boss. The final boss is a giant cat. I like to put a lot of cats on my games. Cats are amazing, I really like cats. I have cats in my house. Forest of Strays is all around cats. Marimoth has a final boss cat. Soulslinger should have a cat, but it does not have. But that's actually for another video. Let's focus on Marimoth. Okay, so the cat. It looks like a giant bread. I don't know why, but I really feel like it's a giant bread. You see, it has the paws are separated from the body because the paws actually attack for themselves, you see? Like, it's not one giant sprite, it's actually 3 sprites. Okay, so do you see this symbol here? This symbol on the paw here? Yeah, this symbol was actually reminiscent from Stone Souls, again. I took a lot of things from Stone Souls and put into Marimoth. Okay, one day I have to make a video on Stone Souls. I worked for over a year on that game and never released it. It's pretty much finished. It's not very good though, but it was really fun working on that, and I have a lot of things to talk about it. But it basically created my own personality on my games. Like, Marimoth wouldn't be the same without Stone Souls, you know? And it was really satisfying to just finish my first game, you know, and have a lot of inspirations of my older projects and see all that coming to life. It's just very, very cool. Okay, so the cat. You can see that here's the credits of the game. Here's the score and everything, so when you finish the game, thank you for playing, press enter. Oh yeah, so all of that appears when you defeat the final boss, which is the cat. And this guy is crazy. I like this guy. It's just a giant cat. That shoots a lot of stuff at you. Again, you should not be here with just 2 shots. This is the final boss, so you should be here with 7 shots. The good part about this boss is that whenever you shoot, it will always hit him. Do you remember what I said about the blind spots? Oh yeah, so you have to use the blind spots as well. And this boss actually spawns random enemies. You see a pincher up there, right? It's coming down any second. Oh yeah. So this boss can spawn literally any enemy from the game. And when it dies, or not dies, but gets defeated, it just explodes and you have the Moth Queen here, ready to be saved. Beautiful. And then it starts the final cutscene of the game. You and the Moth Queen just fly to the horizon together. Beautiful. And the credits roll in, okay? So basically the game was made by me and the soundtrack by my brother. So yeah, I'm very, very thankful for him. He did an amazing job. It's amazing. My games would not be the same without his music, without his sounds. It's really cool. It just comes together so well. And then you just go back to the main menu with a star, because you basically beat the game. Okay, again, talking about my brother, he made all the soundtracks for Forest of Strays, the original version of the Game Jam, for Marimoth. He was making for Stone Souls, but since I stopped working on Stone Souls, since I archived that project, he stopped making the soundtrack as well. He made the soundtrack for Forest of Strays, the newer version. The only games that I released that he did not work on the soundtracks and sound design was Soulful, which I published on my itch.io for free that I made for a game jam, and Soulslinger, which is the upgraded version of Soulful that I released on Steam. Those games I had to work by myself. I had to learn how to compose music for my own games. It was a wild ride, okay? But again, that's a story for another time. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to work with my brother in this way, okay? So I'm very, very thankful to him. Every time that he sent me the files of the musics and I put them together with the game and the sounds and everything, it feels like the game is not worthy of his music, you know, like the rest of the game is not worthy. But yeah, it just comes together so well. It's just so good to be working with him, and I'm very thankful about that. And on to the last parts of the game. Okay, this is the secret boss. Yeah, Marimoth has two endings, you know? This boss, okay, so let me tell you one thing, one single thing. This boss is crazy. It is my magnum opus, the Dragonfly. Okay, so when I remember Marimoth, I think that the Dragonfly is the ultimate final boss. It's like the best part of the game. It was very challenging, but it was really good. I learned a lot just from this fight itself, okay? Just from this fight alone, I learned a lot. Okay, so, why a dragonfly? Okay, this is a very interesting story, actually. It is a dragonfly, because me and my brother were thinking about how can we make a cool final boss, like a true final boss. And then I thought about a lamp, like made a giant lantern as a boss, just so the moth would go to the lantern and everything, but that would not make any sense. Like, how would a lantern attack you? And how would that even work? Like, it's not a good idea, you know? But then, we thought about a dragonfly. A dragonfly, if you don't know, dragonflies are actually the apex predators of the insects. Anything that's smaller than them and a little bit bigger, they can get. Like, it's like a 99% hunt rate. Dragonflies are crazy hunters. So then we thought, okay, we know about the dragonflies, we know how good they are at hunting, so why not make a giant dragonfly as the final boss, as the true final boss? Oh yeah, then we made it. I made it. This is crazy, okay? This boss is so memorable. It's my favorite part of the games by far, okay? By far. The soundtrack, the music of this boss battle is actually insane. My brother went all over with it, okay? So he made a metal, something like a rock metal with it, and it's just so good. It's just amazing. It fits the dragonfly perfectly, and it has a lot of the motifs from the other musics of the game. Like, you can hear pieces of the Mantis boss fight, which is the first boss fight of the entire game. So when you reach the true ending, the true final boss, and you start listening, you start hearing and recognizing the pieces of the music from the first boss, it's like so amazing, it's so good, it's so cool. Let me see if I can show you a little bit the dragonfly. Okay, so this is the dragonfly body. It has lots of animations as well. Making this guy was crazy, okay? So you can see that there are 126 lines of code here. All of this is just to make the dragonfly work. I know I'm not the best coder. I'm actually very mediocre, to be honest. I'm very low on that. I'm not a programmer, okay? I'm learning it. I'm starting to learning it right now. But yeah, ClickTeam saves me so much about that, because it's not like I don't have to program. You see, I had to do it all by myself. But if this was in lines of code, not in events, it would be so much harder. I would have spent so much time working on this game, and the results would be pretty much the same. So I don't see why I would use another engine to make this game if not ClickTeam Fusion, because I really like making games on ClickTeam. It's very practical and very interesting, very cool in general. It's not easy, okay, it's not easy, it's just simpler in some ways. It has its fair share of limitations, but I really enjoy it, okay? So I had to program all of this. This is still called programming, okay? I still program things here. It's just not in code, okay? It's in events, because ClickTeam works with events. Yeah, that's it. So all of these are conditions for the events to make the Dragonfly work, okay? So the Dragonfly is amazing. I really went all over it as well. Like, when I was working on other bosses, I usually spent a week working on a boss, okay? So I usually spend like a week or half a week sometimes, if I was really motivated. Okay, like the Mantis, it was a week to make, all the visuals and programming and everything, it was pretty much a week. But when I started working on the Dragonfly, it was like pretty much a month. I was working on it for a month. Like, I put so much effort into a secret boss that pretty much nobody saw. But I'm very glad I did that, because this boss is pretty much the ending of Marimoth, so I really like it. It's like my favorite part of the game by far. Okay, so let me show you a little bit of it. Okay, and then the music just looped, okay? So this fight is very big, okay? It's a giant fight, like, you take so much time to beat this guy. I'm taking so much mainly because, well, I'm with just 2 shots, and again, this is the true final boss, so you have to be here with at least 7 shots, which is the maximum amount of shots. Oh yeah, but yeah, that's it, okay? This is the Dragonfly boss battle. This is the Dragonfly fight. And now it enters its second stage, okay? So yeah. And I'm dead. And this is the game over screen, okay? Very, very good timing to show that. Okay, the score minus 300, because I failed. And since I started from the Dragonfly, I didn't gather any score before that. So yeah, that's it. Very sad. But the Dragonfly is amazing, okay? I really enjoy it, okay? Sorry if I'm talking too much about it, if I'm saying too much that it's amazing, but I really enjoyed the Dragonfly. It was really fun to make. Like, spending all the time making this single boss fight was so incredible, like, and all the attacks, like, for an example, when she dives from the diagonals of the screen and start, like, hitting every spot on the screen, you have to be very careful to dodge that. It's not impossible, as you can see, I could do it one time, but that's very hard, since its wings are so big. And it's very fast, it's like moves from one point to another very quickly and shoots a lot of projectiles, and those spheres that when you destroy they explode in even more projectiles. This fight is just so hard. It's the final piece of Marimoth, it's the ending of the game, okay? And how do you get to this fight, okay? So if you defeat the cat, you just beat the game, alright? You just finish it. You just have to start all over again. To get to the dragonfly, you have to no hit. That means you have to not receive any damage until the first stage of the chasm. So you have to beat all the garden, all the forest, all the seaside, and all the treetops, even the boss of the treetops, without getting hit, without being damaged once. It's very, very hard. And when you do that, you get a different item from the Moth Princess, okay? She will not give you a heart, because you're at full health. It doesn't matter if you get a heart or not. She gives you a piece. She gives you a wing, a dragonfly wing. And when you collect 4 of these dragonfly wings, when you defeat the cat, the queen will just go alone and you head into the dragonfly fight, okay? So you have to beat the cat as well. And yeah, I guess that's it for the dragonfly. Let me see, what else do I have to show you? Okay, so there are a few quirks in Marimoth. For an example, like if you defeat 2 enemies at once, only one enemy is calculated on the score. The other simply is not. You don't get all the score that you had to get. Another very interesting bug was that during the test phase of the game, when my brother was testing the game, he played a lot. He played like one run after another, right? But when you play too much of the game at one go, like don't close the game and just play it for hours, each time that you play, the enemies have less health. That was very strange. Like, I still, to this day, don't know why, but it happened. So I fixed it before releasing it, so it doesn't happen anymore, but it's a very interesting bug that happened during the test phases. So every enemy that would like, okay, so I can defeat this enemy with 2 shots. The next time that you play, you would defeat it with only 1 shot. And that's very, very strange. Okay, so how it was to release my first game on Steam, right? This is a very interesting topic. Like, releasing Marimoth on Steam was amazing, okay? Since I was a child, I had the dream to release a game on Steam. It was easier than I thought, actually. But it's very amazing to see, like, things coming together, like the store page and making the trailer. Which, for Marimoth, my brother made the trailer as well. Thanks to him, again. And yeah, sending it to analysis, like giving a copy to the Steam staff was so nerve-wracking because I thought, oh my god, okay, so will this be rejected? Will my game even have a chance to be on Steam? And then they rejected it. They rejected the .exe file, they rejected the game first, but they told me what I had to do to fix it. And then I did it. I fixed it. And then it was released, it was accepted, and it was so good, it was so satisfying to finally see the fruits of my work, you see? Because making a game is not easy, I'm making pretty much it all alone, so it's not easy, it's not fast, it's a job that takes so much time. Especially for indie developers. Like, not just solo developers like me, but small teams making a game. It's a monumental task, okay? So you have to make all the graphics, you have to be a artist, you have to be a designer, you have to be a programmer, you have to be a composer, you have to be a director, you have to be a salesman, like you have to market your game, which yeah, it's something that I'm definitely not good at. But you have to be all that stuff at once. Like, you have to do it all at once. It's like the one of the hardest forms of art, okay? Because making games is art, okay? Making games is art. Games are artworks. Artworks by artists. Programming is important, but programming is just the glue that holds everything else together, okay? So this is how I see it. So this is why I like using ClickTeam, because it makes this process a little bit easier. Not too much easier, but a little bit. I'm learning Godot right now, because I really want to make 3D games, and I'm learning how to program on GDScript too. I'm learning Blender as well, so I can make my own 3D models and everything else. But for 2D games like Marimoth, Soulslinger, Forest of Strays, I don't see why using another engine, at least for me, since I have a lot of experience with ClickTeam. I work with ClickTeam since 2018, when making games for me was just a hobby. It was just fun. Now it's my work of life, like it's my job. Making games is my job. And finally publishing a game on Steam made this dream reality, you know, made my dream reality. And it's not like Marimoth went very good with sales or went popular. No, it's actually a very, very obscure game. Like, you don't see people playing Marimoth, you don't see people playing my games, but that's not about it. This is just one step that I'm reaching there. Someday I'll reach it. But now, it's just so satisfying to have something published, you know? Have something finished, have a product that's not just a product, it's my work of art, that it's finished. I managed to finish it. Because, you don't know, but since... Okay, so I started learning about the game development back in 2015. In 2017, I bought ClickTeam Fusion, the standard edition, and 2018, I started really working with it. I started really putting my ideas out of the paper and just working with ClickTeam and making games. In 2020, I managed to get the developer edition of ClickTeam Fusion. So yeah, I pretty much have all the DLCs, all the extensions for ClickTeam. So yeah, it's my main tool of work. And since 2018, I was making smaller prototypes, okay? I was making little games and little things that someday I would hope to make real games out of that. But it never happened, okay? So I spent 2018, 2019 just making games that were never going to be released. I made over 20 games in those 2 years, but they never ever released because I never finished them. Some of them were stuck at the very start of the development process, others kinda late, but not in the final steps. Then 2020 came, I decided to participate on a game jam, and I made Forest of Strays, the original version, and I finally finished the project, but I couldn't release it on Steam. Since it was not good enough, it was made in a hurry, so I could not release it on Steam. And then I started working on Stone Souls. Between Stone Souls and Forest of Strays, there was a little game that I stopped working on, that I gave up, archived the idea. And then Stone Souls itself got archived. Then I started working on many other prototypes, okay? So I have worked on so many different games to reach a point where I could finally release one on Steam, that when I got to release my first game on Steam, it was not my first game. It was like my third first game at this point, you know? My third first game that I actually saw the ending. Because there were like 40, 50, or even 60 different games that never saw the light of day, you know? Never saw the ending process, I never saw the ending to them. And even to this day, I started developing games and not finish them. And I simply do not finish them. For one reason or another, Soulslinger went so close to not being released. But that's a story for another time as well. But Marimoth was so good to work on. I never thought about giving up on Marimoth, okay? So when I started working on Marimoth, I knew that this game was going to be released. And this is why it's so satisfying, because I sat on my computer and started working and started working and working and working and working to make it happen, and it did, and it happened. I have my first game on Steam. It was so... For this game, I even made something kinda ambitious, but I decided to do that, okay? So, if you use Steam, you know that games have trading cards and emoticons and items and emojis, you know, backgrounds for profiles and a lot of that stuff, you see? I made some for Marimoth as well. Let me show you that. Okay, so this is the badge, level 1. The level 1 badge for Marimoth on Steam. Okay, it never happened, because to have trading cards on your game, you have to have a kinda good fan base, like you need to have people playing your game, and unfortunately, my games are not all that amazing, and I'm not popular, so yeah, that's something that I'm working on right now, but I doubt that Marimoth will get trading cards soon, but if one day, only if one day Marimoth gets trading cards, I already have all the arts prepared, everything done, okay? So this is the badge level 1, this is the badge level 2, okay, so the badges are the bosses, okay, so I just drew and remade the bosses on tiny little badges. This is the squid, this is the bird, this is the cat for the level 5 badge, and for the shiny, for the foil badge, it's the dragonfly, okay? The dragonfly is the foil badge. And I even have the trading cards as well, okay? So I made this illustration here for the card. I have this illustration as well of the 4 princesses, the 4 moth princesses. The moth queen, you see, like locked in the chasm and everything, and she's very sad because she's locked in the chasm. The items that you get to, throughout the game, like the coins, the hearts, the orbs, and then the dragonfly wings. And then you have the tiny little emojis, like for an example the moth emoji, the queen moth, the moth queen emoji as well. You have the fish emoji, because the fish is an enemy of the game. You could probably already see it in Seaside when I was showing it. You have the squid as well. The squid as a emoji is very interesting. And yeah, you have the profile backgrounds as well, like the moth background, you have the 4 princesses background, and you have the moth queen background as well. Oh yeah, so I have worked on everything, okay, for the day that Marimoth gets trading cards, okay? I don't know if this day will ever come, I don't know if I will ever be able to do that, but if it happens one day, I'm ready, okay? These are the achievements as well. You see all the images from the achievements for beating every stage and defeating the dragonfly. Oh yeah, one curious thing, the dragonfly stage is actually called the Cloverfields, and she basically merges with the Cloverfields and like camouflages over the leaves and everything. Here are all the files of Marimoth, like everything inside the game, like everything that's inside the game is here, and a little bit extras as well, like for an example the trailer cover or the title screen, a lot of things are here. Working with pixel art is kind of a passion of mine, I really enjoy it, and making games with pixel art is so good, so cool. I like it a lot, and I like to make my own sprites, my own art this way, okay? So, yeah, because I'm an artist. Overall, I'm not just game developer, I'm an artist. Okay, so I believe that's it. Marimoth was my first game on Steam, and I'm very glad that I made it. Even though it's fairly simple and not very polished, I'm in the end, I'm still a beginner. You always have something to learn, you always have something different to master, so I'm always in learning process. Every game that I hop in, that I started working, teaches me something. So yeah, Marimoth was my first game. I'm very glad that I made it. I'm very glad that I was able to release it. And this is just a sneak peek of how it was to develop the game. I really hope that you enjoyed it. It was really fun for me to talk about it. Sorry for my broken English, since it's not my main language. This game is something else for me. It has a special place in my heart. And I really hope that you enjoyed it. I really hope that if you ever played Marimoth or plan to play Marimoth, I really hope that you like it. Okay, so this game is not just a game for me, it's my work of art. And now I'm going to leave a video of my brother playing on guitar the main Marimoth song. So yeah, thank you so much again for watching, e até mais!